What was your most embarrassing moment? Man, I've had so many it's hard to choose just one. Sophomore in high school in biology, when I suddenly need to use the bathroom, they always had us use sign-out sheets, so I was signing myself out right in front of my crush's desk. I bent over and arched my back so he'd have a real nice view of my ass in my American Eagle jeans, even wiggled it a bit. I was a flirt. Get to the bathroom and realize I was just wagging around my period-stained ass for the whole world to see. And it was really bad too, like Flag of Japan bad. Had to wear my friend's sweatshirt around my waist the rest of the day. And I definitely know my crush saw it because he was a really nice guy and said something to my female teacher while I was gone so she could let me know, cringing all over again. Third grade show and tell. A classmate had brought in a frog for show and tell, and people were allowed to hold it if they wanted to. I thought I was such hot shit for being the only girl that was willing to do so. I got the frog in my hands, then said, "Oh, how cool." And that's when the frog jumped into my mouth. It was humiliation incarnate. Forgot my sister was gay when I was drunk. She brought a friend to our Christmas party. I asked permission in front of the girl if I could make out with the girl. They've been together 6 years now. They like to bring that up at friends' gathering. Shudders. Most embarrassing moment I can currently think of anyway. Stuff like this all the time. I have so damn many. Let me start with this. When I was about 17 or so, I was at my wealthy girlfriend's house on a lazy summer afternoon. It's just me and her in their giant house, and my girl decides to take a shower. I'm in her room, pretty bored, when I decide to investigate her underwear drawer. I find a tiny, sequiny, pink thong and decide it would be funny if my 200 pounds, well built at the time, self surprised my girl by wearing them. I hear the shower turn off, and a minute later, I hear someone coming down the hallway. I start strutting down the hallway, naked but for this tiny, shiny thong, my mediocre dick and giant balls hanging out of one side of it. And then she sees me. She, the South American housekeeper. I hear half of her frightened gasp before I turn and run back into the bedroom. I avoided this poor woman for the next 2 years of my relationship with this girl. I do. I was in my kinda class and there was a boy, we will call him Kevin, that always shit himself. My teacher smelled something funny and asked us all who did it. Kevin's best friend, let's call him Jorge, came to Kevin's rescue by going around the entire class and sniffing everyone's ass from the chair they were sitting in. He smells Kevin's ass and says, "Oh, it's not him, he smells like fruit roll-ups." Then he smells my ass and tells the teacher I shit myself. So the teacher makes me come up to her desk and turn around and proceeds to look down my pants. I was clean. It was Kevin. I'm scarred for life. Once, I had a crush on a girl when I was like 12. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but even though I barely knew her, I decided to go to her house and put some shitty, wrinkled post-it note in her mailbox. I don't know why I didn't just use normal paper. 12-year-old me was stupid, that said, "Will you go out with me?" Smile meme Lord _. I also decided that wasn't romantic enough, so I stole some shitty, slightly wilted flower from my neighbor's garden and put it in there too. She then messaged me the next day on Facebook and rejected me. Did I mention this girl still goes to high school with me to this day, and I still see her almost every day. I ran cross-country in high school. This particular day at a home meet was 117 degrees outside. The race was still on. Some of us suffered from heat stroke and were taken away by ambulance. I ended up losing control of my bladder when I crossed the finish line because of how badly I was trying to finish the race without passing out. Luckily, my dad met me on the field with his half-gallon thermos and I just soaked myself with it, trying not to tear up as I told him I had just peed from running so hard. He felt really bad about it, but proud I did so well and finished. Ironically, on the night of my 16th birthday that same year, I wet the bed and broke down when I had to tell my dad about it in the morning. That he laughed at because he thought I was making a big deal out of it. No, Dad, I just didn't think 16-year-olds still do that and it was my birthday. Stories 2, most of which just involve me getting hurt in stupid ways in front of crowds. Edit because a commenter reminded me of another good one. The other day I put a bagel in the cafeteria toaster and it burst into flames. Not the bagel, the toaster. I didn't even do anything and it burst into flames. I kind of quietly yelled for a teacher then bolted. Edit 2 because someone requested more stories. Last year, I was walking down a crowded staircase. Someone was walking up and dragging their backpack along the ground. My foot went through the strap, and I went down. Instead of doing the logical thing and letting go, this guy kept trying to yank his bag of my foot, so I was falling face first down a crowded staircase unable to stand up because my foot was being yanked into the air, flopping like a fish trying to get my foot free. I made it out alive, but I looked like I'd been in. Boy, do I have a few. At Hollister when I was 12. Saw someone dressed exactly like me, went over to say hi, walked directly into a mirror. Turned around, pulled out my phone to text a friend about how dumb I was, immediately walked into another mirror. Freshman year of high school. All the desks in the room were pushed together so I can't get through. I decided to just hop into the chair, then the desk, then gracefully jump down into the center of the room, instead of going all the was around. There was a paper on the desk. When I hopped up my leg shot out behind me and I landed on my face, like, remember that purple painting from the front page a few days ago? Picture that, in the middle of the room. The room had been silent as everyone worked, then they all just heard, scream, crash, I'm okay. Sophomore English. I was in one of those desks where the seat connects to the desk itself. Dropped a pencil over the edge, flipped the entire desk trying to get it. Ended up pinned under by the connecting bar and some guy had to pull it off me. Teacher made me sit on the floor for 2 weeks. A few months ago, in a professional play being reviewed that night by a fairly major critic, I forgot the word point, as in, toothpicks have a point, and resorted to making pointing gestures with my hands. This just looked like weird flailing because I for some reason forgot that a hand gesture for point already exists. Eventually another actor supplied me with the word. There was also the night in that play where I forgot to put on my makeup, my fake dirt, my jewelry, which is mentioned in the dialogue, and my shoes, and the night I accidentally punched my co-star trying to hand him a doll. So, yeah. I lead a pretty embarrassing life. I've got plenty more of these. A fight. And, probably the most embarrassing moment of my life, I've told this one before, I was at the public garden, which has a pond where people often get married. I was walking with a friend around the edge of the pond, a little ways down from this couple literally in the process of saying their vows. I was distracted by their cuteness, so I lost my footing and very loudly fell into the pond. The wedding party, having heard our splash, whirled around, some just in time to get splashed by me. The bride yelled, "Are you okay?" And I assured her I was, then waded back to the path and hurried the fuck away. My grandpa flagrantly broke the half my age plus 7 rule and married a woman a third of his age. It was a palatial affair, with a horse-drawn carriage out front. When I met her at the ceremony she had her nails done and they were extremely long. I happened to be going through my U2 phase and asked, if ambition bites the nails of success, why are yours so long? Still embarrassed about quoting Bono lyrics a quarter century later. I was still in high school. And a girl texted me to come over on Valentine's Day, thinking that she was texting one of her lady friend. Excited I show up with a box of chocolates. She gives me a look and invites me into her house. I see her other friends in PJs. I was hella confused. Edit, since everyone is so curious I might as well. Her female friends set us up, and we ended up playing Truth or Dare. That was my first hookup. My father stepping into the room while I was watching porn for the first time. At least you don't have it as bad as this guy. Couldn't get the link, but I copied it, not a parent, but my dad did at some point find me choking the chicken to a Scooby-Doo porno I found online. Can still hear my dad asking what the hell I was doing as the goddamn re-hee-hee rang out from Scoobs. Edit, from this thread https://www.reddit.com/r/7if/nosy_parents_do_wish_d9ifuck/. Fainted in a high school psych class while watching a video of brain surgery. Apparently I just fell out of my desk like a sack of bricks. Woke up on the floor and everyone was freaking out / staring at me. Already regret typing this out. Fuck, that was so hard to show up to class the rest of the semester. Back in middle school when AAM was a big thing, I was chatting with a girl I had a crush on. She had a Hispanic last name. Anyway, I wanted to send her something I thought was funny. So I did the old Ctrl+V and pressed enter in the same motion without checking it first. Apparently, the last thing I had on my clipboard was 8th StreetLatinas.com. As you may infer from the name, yeah, it's porn. Oddly context-specific porn. I tried to scramble and think of an excuse. There was none. I think I said oops, wrong link, no need to click that. May have blamed a computer virus. That sounds like something I would do. Then I just closed the application in a panic. Based on her behavior the next day, she absolutely clicked that link and absolutely didn't think it was a virus. Okay, I've got a few, but this one takes the cake. Back in 199, something, baggy pants were the shit. I was wearing one that was ridiculously big for me. That alone would be embarrassing enough, but I had to run to get the bus and it came down. It doesn't end there. I tripped on it and fell, broke my arm. Okay, I was lying on the floor literally in the middle of the street, cars had to stop, with my pants down and a broken arm. I think I won this thread. I refuse to think about it, but it keeps crawling its way back to my mind. I'm 35 now, shit. I peed on myself once in kindergarten, yet my teacher wouldn't acknowledge me raising my hand. Since then, for the rest of my school years, I pretty much never asked. If I put my hand up and they didn't acknowledge me, which was rather often, I just stood up and walked out of class. Of course, then they'd notice me. Bitch, I'm not waiting for you when either I'm about to pee on myself, or my period is about to overflow everywhere. Had passed out from the pain, but I kept walking and kept repeatedly running face first into the glass display case on the wall. My teacher heard this and came out to see what was going on. He helps me to the nurse's office where they lay me down, all the while I keep mumbling that I need to poop really bad, but they ignored me. Finally, they let me go take my shit in peace. Mid-shit, I shit you not, some fucking paramedic just walks right into my bathroom and starts questioning me. After this lovely interview, I go back out and lay down on the bed in the nurse's office, surrounded by a slew of people. Finally, a cop comes in and starts questioning me. Up until this point I was just embarrassed about the whole situation, and was nonchalantly answering the questions, when the cop gets really serious and tells me to pay attention right that instant. It then dawned on me that they were all under the impression I had overdosed on drugs. After clearing up that I hadn't done any drugs and just had to shit really bad, they finally wheel me out to ambulance to go downtown to the hospital. Of course, it's passing period by this point. So half the goddamn school sees me getting wheeled outside. I got so many messages that night from people thinking I had died. So, in the end I was left with no dignity, tons of rumors, and a couple $1,000s worth of medical expenses. All because I ate too many clementines and had to take a shit. So, clementines, those delicious little orange fruits. 8th grade year I decided one night that I was going to eat an entire bag of these little fuckers. I just couldn't stop myself for some reason. The next day I go to school, all is well, I get to first period and my stomach just decides to go ape shit. Problem is, I have severe anxiety. Especially when it comes to pooping in public, and the bathrooms were the ones with just an opening, no closed door. So, I was super paranoid that if I went and let out this massive dump people would hear it if they were walking by. So, I try and hold it in and hope the pain goes away. I quickly realize that this isn't going to happen and start making my way to the bathroom. The next thing I remember, after leaving the room, is me half-conscious laying on the ground in front of the library, and my teacher trying to help me stand up. Apparently, I was in an exam but bunged up. About 10 minutes in I sneeze really loud, practically a shout. Out flows a deluge of snot into my hands. It's super sticky and still connected to my face, so I'm essentially flossing with my own mucus. That reminds me of a time in media class. I was talking to a friend where a sneeze and a cough came out of nowhere and a green goop flew out of my mouth, and hit the keyboard. My friend ran, in disgust, like there was no tomorrow. Edit, I also had to hide it somewhere, so I picked it up, and made a decision that the inner sleeve of my pants was a good place. So I did, while he was watching from across the room. 11-day edit. My best comment is my most embarrassing one, nice. At my middle school we had no doors on our toilet stalls. The toilet was arranged so that there was the door to the bathroom, toilets, then sinks, urinals, so everyone entering the bathroom would see you shitting. One day, in 6th grade I really had to do it, so I walked in and pooped when some 8th graders walked in. They had an enormous respect for me for pooping, so they helped take care of Drew the douche 7th grader for me. Leap of faith to the soft green summer grass below. But I never hit the grass. My shorts? The pocket of my shorts got caught on a knob on the branch, and I am now dangling upside down, half my ass showing for all the world to see, screaming and laughing and crying, in my front yard. People drove by. People were walking their dogs. My shiny white ass was witness to the goings-on of a suburban neighborhood for 30 fucking minutes before Zach pulled himself together enough to go get my dad to help. Zack falls ungracefully out of the tree and runs home? What? See, what I didn't know is that Zack wasn't abandoning me. Zack had pissed himself laughing and was running home for more pants. Presumably he didn't want to draft my old man's help, smelling of piss and tears of laughter. A good 5 minutes goes by. I've accepted my fate, I've stopped struggling, my ass is still out. And Zack crests the hill that divided our house, and I just let out a caterwaul of surprise and disbelief that he'd returned, my knight in shining armor. He knocked on the door and my mother, bless her heart, pokes her head out of the screen door. I hear Zack say from my percha, XX_Southpaw_XX is stuck. And out of the corner of her eye my mother sees her son dangling by his cargo shorts out of a tree, just dejectedly squirming at this point. She was laughing so hard she could barely lift me off of the branch. And that, Reddit, is my most embarrassing moment. And gangly and my arms were too weak. So, being the clever little bastard I was, I scamper into the garage and drag a bin of my big brother's baseball gear into the front yard so I could get a leg up, and it worked. I clambered into the tree, huffing and puffing, and settled myself on a branch a couple feet down from Zack. Me and Zack have a grand old time in the tree. I remember we played movie charades. I also specifically remember that Zack couldn't identify my silent rendition of Titanic, "Come on Zack." Then my dad leans out of the screen door and shouts at us damn kids to get out of his tree, and we comply. Zack tells me to get down first since I'm lower down than him. Shit. Now, it wasn't too far of a drop, but my brain set all the files on logic on fire, locked itself in the panic room, and shit itself all in one swift motion, so I'm left on autopilot. I ball myself up and take a. Once upon a time me and my pal Zack were 12 years old. It was a hot summer's day, and we were bored with watching my dog mill about the yard. Then, Zack has an idea. Zack suggests that we should go climb a tree. Fun, right? Wrong. I could not climb trees to save my life. It was pretty embarrassing for a kid and I didn't want anyone to know about my climbing deficiency. So in an effort to save my neighborhood image, I suggest that we climb the squat, graying tree in my backyard, easy to get up into, easy to get down out of. But Zack. Oh Zack. Nah, that one's too small, and the bark's scratchy anyway, let's climb the big one in your front yard. Fuck. Velp. Here we go. Zack, being a fucking squirrel, darts up the tree into a comfortable branch near the trunk without a care in the world. I try in vain to scramble up the tree after him, but to no avail, my legs were simply too long. I've never been into competitions, but I was a pretty talented actor when I was in high school. My theater teacher was always trying to get me to compete, and one year I guess she just got tired of my resistance and signed me up without my permission. I hadn't done anything like it before. I guess I just thought it would be me in a room with a judge, and I would just wing something easy and be done. I didn't really prepare at all. So I show up, and I walk into this giant fucking theater with easily like 100+ people spectating or waiting their turn, but everyone was performing in front of everyone else. To this day I have no idea why I didn't just turn around and leave, but I started watching and everyone was just sort of meh, so my confidence started to get the best of me. I had at least 1 or 2 things up my sleeve to get through this. So my turn comes, and I walk up, and dive. Show up unprepared for anything maturity lesson. Into Hamlet, forget where I am at least, twice and merge in a small monologue from Julius Caesar and touches of a piece from Macbeth. In my best acting form, I tried not to let on what was happening, though I knew damn well, was humiliated as shit. This was high school theater, so everyone knew these pieces. People were giggling, the judges were looking at me like I was a moron. It was terrible. I got to a line that sounded like a good ending, and I just stopped. I couldn't take the pain anymore. One of the judges must have thought I was pausing, so he says, "That's it." So I just said, "Yep. Thanks." And ran off stage and out of the theater. I'm still not sure if there was anyone I actually knew there. I never specifically saw a familiar face, and no one ever talked about it. I regret it to this day, actually, and I can specifically credit that exact experience with learning my never. Oh. I can contribute to this question. My whole damn life is a goddamn embarrassment. So much that I'm used to it by now and almost expect it skeptical. I stack it/crash into something at least twice a day on a daily basis. Best moments would have been the stairs at Town Hall Station, one of Sydney's busiest train stations, during peak hour, fall up a set of escalators and trying to look somewhat classy at work but slamming into those revolving doors. Being 4 feet 10 inches, about 148 centimeters, some automatic doors don't detect me straight away. Yes, I've walked into a few because I would assume they would open, but it's even more awkward when I have to step back and forward in hopes they open. And then someone else will be going in and they open for them. I meekly potter in after them. Also, due to lack of height, I often have to kinda ask strangers to get something off the top shelves for me. Once, nobody was in the aisle at the supermarket, so I tried scaling it. Only to lose balance and fall on my ass as someone just entered the aisle I was in. Pokemon Go increased my track record of walking into poles/street signs. Those things hurt like hell. And more often than not, occur in front of a crowd. Why, but public transport makes me sleepy. Quite often I would drift off only to wake up startled, resulting in kicking the chairs or legs of strangers. I've ended up using someone's shoulder as a pillow, but the worst one yet. I woke up to find my hand had wandered dangerously close to some poor guy's crotch. He didn't even bother stopping me and had let me sleep. Finally, something I've done twice, saw someone waving and smiling at me and I would wave and smile back, hesitantly, trying to remember who they are. Turned out it was the people behind me. And of course I can't remember who they are. I don't fucking know them. Edited, grammar? When I was 14 I woke up to go to the bathroom and it was like 3 in the morning. The door was cracked open slightly to let some light into the hallway so nobody would trip, and usually if someone goes in there to poop or pee they close it. My dad decided not to close the door all the way that night. He woke up and had to poop, and assumed nobody would need to go at that hour. What makes it embarrassing is that in my sleepy stupor I sat on the edge of the tub and tried to have a conversation with him. He kept asking, "Will you please just, go?" But it never clicked until a few minutes later. I went back to bed and waited until he was back in his room until I went to pee. I used to go to a pub down the street from my house every Friday after work. I became quick friends with the owner and the bartender. One day I had a few too many, the bartender was off, sitting with me drinking. His wife shows up beside him, kisses his cheek, says, "Hello dearie." To which I replied, "Oh, is this your mum?" She became instantly hostile. It was his wife. I apologized, paid for my drinks, apologized again for being drunk and speaking out of turn, then left immediately. The bartender didn't seem fazed because he knew me well and knew I didn't mean anything by it. That was about 16 months ago. I haven't returned due to work schedule change. I bet they think I'm just too embarrassed to go back for a pint. During high school I worked as a car hop at Sonic. They made us wear roller skates. The first order I ever took out was a huge tray full of Route 44 slushes. I shakily skate out and go to step off the curb with the massive tray of drinks and bam, my ass hits the curb and the slushes go flying. I'm covered in green and purple goo sitting on the curb right in front of the car I was going to take them to, all while watching the customers laugh hysterically at me. I think the worst part was when they rolled down the car window to ask me how long it would take for someone else to bring out their order. Came out? No silence whatsoever. For at least 30 seconds, the entire classroom, about 30 kids, heard the most cliché farting sound except extremely loud. Out of my ass? Some kids from the 2 neighboring classrooms came over to see what had happened. I'm pretty sure people beyond those classrooms heard it too. Which, the only way that the other classrooms could have heard it was because there were no true walls in the school. Just large dividers. I blame that monster fart on the meal I had that day, the famous grilled cheese and tomato soup. It felt pretty obvious what happened because my face was red as the tomato soup I ate earlier that day. TL, doctor, did a big fart. Elementary school. Classrooms with dividers, i.e., no walls. Grilled cheese with tomato soup. Important later. I was just sitting in my chair minding my own business when I felt a pressure begin to build up in my butt like I was about to fart or something. So, the day is almost over, so I tell myself that I can hold in this little fart until the end of school. Whatever, not that big a deal. So the pressure builds more and more. I think to myself that this fart is going to be significantly harder to hold in. So I start to concentrate on holding in now. The pressure is so great, it takes every ounce of my will to hold this monster in. At this point, I might have missed some good information because I was concentrating so hard to keep all this air inside me. But with that, I remember the trick to silently letting out air and try to employ it. There was so much pressure, it all. When we all get home after the barbecue, my siblings, who already met this guy, inform me that his wife had passed a couple of years ago. I had been away from home for quite some time because I was away at school. The weekend I decide to go home, we get invited over to our family friend's house for a barbecue. At this barbecue is a middle-aged guy, and we get to talking after the introductions. As it turns out, he's a massive soccer fan like myself. He tells me and my siblings that he traveled to Philadelphia for the MLS All-Star game. The opponent was Chelsea FC from England. This guy whips out his iPad and starts to show my siblings and I the pictures of his awesome seats and the players he got pictures with. Then one comes up with a guy named John Terry. For the unfamiliar, Terry is a great English defender who had an affair with his teammate's wife. So I say, hey, don't let him near your wife, eh? No laughter. So I say it again. Still no laughter. I just assume he doesn't get the joke, so I just drop it after that. First date with this girl, we went exploring in the woods on a 90-something degree day. I didn't eat prior to the date because I was afraid of getting nervous and throwing up. Eventually we made it out of the woods where there were more people and I threw up. Made it a few feet and then threw up again. I was in 3rd grade and had to puke, and the rule was we had to ask for permission, so I ran up to the front of the room and the young student teacher looked in horror as I spewed on the chalkboard, and the tray underneath it that held the chalk sticks. When I was a junior in high school, I had this English teacher who was a stickler for hall passes. It was first period and I was quite hungover. I politely asked the teacher if I could go to the restroom as I didn't feel well. To my knowledge, she was not aware I was just hungover. She refused me 3 times, so after about 6 or 7 minutes of trying not to gag, I calmly walk up and proceed to throw up in the little trash can by her desk. I then sit back down. The room smelled like somebody had broken open a bottle of Jack Daniels. Good times. That's my only class throw-up story and I felt like sharing. Edit, grammar. When I was about 8 or 9, my family took a vacation up through New England. We were in Martha's Vineyard or something like that, and my parents decided to take us on a whale watching tour. Maybe it was all the bouncing on the waves, but about midway through the trip my bladder was about to burst and I had to handle that. I got my mom's permission and she said the toilet was above deck at the back of the boat, so that's where I went. Right at the back by the motors was a little space, maybe 10'X10, and the bathroom door which faced the motors. This little spot was also the designated smoking section, so there were like 10 or 20 adults standing around the door in a semicircle smoking and socializing. I had to make my way through all of them and go into the bathroom very much in front of them all. That was a very shameful thing for little 7 or 8-year-old me, but things in my bladder had gotten to a point where I had little choice but to go for it. So I did. I mustered up my courage, made my way past everybody and opened the door and quickly closed it behind me. It was very small in there. Like a phone booth or an airplane toilet. The door had a knob and a little deadbolt type latch, but when I closed the door the deadbolt wouldn't throw, it was jammed or something. I figured all those people saw me go in, so they'd let anyone know before they came in after me, so I could probably do without the deadbolt. I didn't really have time to negotiate with the thing at this point anyhow, as I had a flood knocking at the gates. I frantically clawed my pants open, flipped it out and zeroed in on my mark just as the stream gave way. It was a wonderful feeling. Release at last. Eyes closed, deep serene breathing. Zen? Right about then I guess the boat hit a wave or something, because that door flung all the way open with a violence that I reflexively matched as I turned midstream chasing after it. And there I stood face to face with all those terrifying adults, bird in hand, as it mercilessly watered my jeans, and they stood shocked and amused at my horrifying misfortune. Time hung still for a moment, save the stream of warm piss I was dousing myself with. I managed to wrestle the door shut. The deadbolt closed that time. I finished what I was doing and cleaned up the best I could. Once again gathered my courage, and let adrenaline carry me out and to my family, studying the floor the whole way. We saw some right whales. Edit, we saw right whales. Had a mini dance competition as kids in a whole auditorium. I did a pretty sweet move on stage where I squat and stick my legs out in an alternating style repeatedly. Sorry, not sure what the move is called. People cheered. We went to the next round. I told my friend, sorry if I get all the glory. We ended up flopping on stage and getting booed in round 2. I hate my stupid childhood ego. This is why I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they gave you the benefit of the doubt too. Very few people in this world are that rude to actually ask that sort of thing of someone like that and mean it, so I'm sure they realized later that you just didn't know. If they didn't, they've probably forgotten all about it by now, or will soon. Chances are this has probably happened to either person, and they can tell you didn't know. Sign on my back. Hair was combed. Nothing in my teeth. Or no? I got to class and Jennifer walked right up to me and handed me the letter back saying she wasn't interested. I asked her if she showed anyone. She said of course, it was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. Handed to her myself and I decided I wanted to write the letter, leave it in her locker on Friday, then I called my parents to come and pick me up early from school. That way I could avoid her over the weekend and hopefully by Monday, she had enough time to consider it. Well, I was 16 writing a love letter. So it was full of cringe and immaturity. Lots of "I've loved you since." And I catch myself staring at you during labs. And stuff like that. I ended the letter with something akin to, "Listen, I'm not very popular and I don't need a reason for kids to pick on me, so even if you turn me down, please don't show this letter or tell anyone else about this. Thanks." When I got to school Monday, everyone would do that hushes whispers thing where they whisper, then giggle while looking directly at me. I knew something was up. A trip to the bathroom confirmed my fly was up. No kick me. The one that, after more than 10 years have passed, still makes me get out of bed and wash my face and get a drink of water because it makes me feel incredibly embarrassed to this day. I was a shy kid in high school. Very introverted and very quiet. People generally liked me, but I often sat by myself by choice. Sometimes people would sit with me because again, despite being introverted and quiet, I was well liked. In any case, we were given assigned partners in 9th grade, and this person, unless they moved, would be your partner all the way until senior year. I got assigned to be the partner of the prettiest, in my opinion at the time, girl in school. She was basically my at the time dream girl. So I felt really lucky. After a year and some change of being lab partners and spending a lot of time together, I finally decided I wanted to write her a love letter. I was too nervous to. Expecting this to get buried, but what the hell. My dad calls this one of my funniest moments, but as a little kid I was embarrassed. We were at one of the bigger local malls, for Christmas shopping and to help my brother and I find items for our list. This was before computers were in every single household. So I was feeling sick before we went out. But I wasn't going to miss going to the mall and seeing all the toys I wanted for Christmas. First we go and get dinner, and I have this giant bowl of pasta. Can already probably guess where this is going, so we are in a GameStop. I am telling my mom I feel really sick. I small vomit in my mouth and tell her. This is when my parents realize I'm serious. However, we are as far away from a bathroom as we can be. So we bolt through the food court. About halfway through, I projectile vomit everywhere. 3 times to be exact. I was so embarrassed. The mall was packed. My dad finds it hilarious at how many people had lost their appetite after seeing that. I had taken my dog to the park and I needed to go to the poo bin. I had to wait for 2 girls and their dad to go past on their bikes. The girl at the front turned and said, "Which way are you going?" To which I replied, "Oh, I'm just going to the poo bin." She gave me a filthy look and it dawned on me that she was talking to her dad, not me. It's not the first time and won't be the last time I randomly join in on a conversation that isn't meant for me. Change. That was 2 miles away. So I did. And it was awful. For some reason I am prone to pants ripping. I've torn straight up the crotch on 2 separate bowling occasions and once at work. The one at work was bad because we were understaffed that day, so I couldn't leave. Instead I added a second apron to the back of my body to cover up for the remaining 2 hours. But the worst was when I was 14. I went with my family to a religious service and, as we do every year, we sat in the first row in a huge hall with at least 300 people. I was wearing my best suit. We were told to stand up, and when I did, I realized my prayer book was under my chair. So, without creasing, I bent down to pick it up. And in a moment of utter silence my pants gave up the fight and tore, loudly, from nuts to ass. I turned to my father and told him what happened. But he refused to leave the service and told me I should return to my grandmother's house too. I lived in South Korea for 3 years teaching English. In my second week there, I had an hour break, so I went home. My apartment was only 5 minutes away. I used to buzz my hair really short with clippers, and it usually took about 15 minutes, so I thought I might as well do my hair before I went back to work. I did about 3 swipes, and then the clippers just stopped cutting. The power was still on, but they just wouldn't cut. Fuck. As my time started running out, I panicked. I couldn't call in sick because I had just been there, and I didn't own any hats. I got scissors and cut all I could manually, and then, with the hair shorter, I could kind of get the clippers to work a little bit. With every swipe, they'd take out a tiny bit of hair. By the time I went to work, it was mostly done, with just some missed chunks here and there that I couldn't do anything about. In the mirror, it hardly even looked noticeable, so I thought I might get away with it. But no. I did not. As soon as I walked into the door, people burst into laughter. And I had to teach like that for an hour. I pooped myself in first grade because I was afraid to ask to go. In kindergarten we had bathrooms in the classrooms themselves, but in first grade, nope. I've always been awkward, and thought I could hold it till bathroom break time. Nope. In kindergarten one day I had to pee like there was no tomorrow, but I was so afraid of the teacher telling me no that I ended up peeing my shorts. That same day I forgot my snack bag in the classroom when going home, so I cried on the way. I had a urinary infection for about a week after. Siri called me daddy in the middle of class. All you had to say was damn right jokingly, and the embarrassing moment is no longer embarrassing. That's always my advice to anyone who has become embarrassed. Own that shit and you'll be fine. I tried that when it was nacho day in high school. I slipped, fell, and my tea flew out of my hand onto a teacher. I hit my head on a table and knocked myself unconscious. I awoke to a bunch of people standing over me. I was covered in cheese and jumped up and started laughing to play it off. Side note: the first person I saw was my best friend laughing silently with her body shaking, her lunch tray in hand. I went to the office to call my parents to come get me, but they didn't answer. The principal had to drive me home but didn't want me dirty up her car, she lined it up with newspaper. My parents didn't answer the phone, BC they were banging it out. Oh boy. Here we go. I have many moments, but I think this will be the most relatable. It was the last day before winter break, and the entire class was saying goodbye to each other before leaving. So this really nice girl stands in front of me and says Merry Christmas. And starts reaching for a hug. I, being pretty nervous, go for it in a somewhat awkwardly fast fashion, but it was a hug nonetheless. As the hug finishes, I look behind me and see that her boyfriend, with the same name as me, is standing right there. Now I realize, she probably meant to hug him, instead of me, the awkward quiet guy. So what do? I hug him too. Luckily they were both nice people, so they probably didn't mind, but still. Naturally my first thought in my surprise and confusion was that it was a leprechaun. I swear. And, I didn't react well at all. I did some kind of screaming sound. Lol. Which was awkward. Followed by silence. He was from AAA. Got my keys out. It was St. Patrick's Day and I went to the 24-hour Walmart really early before work to buy some shamrock cookies for my students. I was hurrying and left my keys locked in the car. I didn't realize it until after I bought the cookies and came out. So, instantly I was so stressed because I knew that I would probably be late to work. Insert profanity here. So, I called AAA, and asked someone to come help me get into the car. So, I am standing there waiting and stressed and it was taking forever. I was getting later and later for work. I was intently focused on the parking lot entrances looking for the AAA truck. When suddenly a voice beside me said, "I'm here to help you get your keys out." I hadn't seen anyone drive or walk up. I turned and, swear to God, don't even know how to say this so it's PC. There was a little man there. A tiny man about as high as my waist. So. When I was about 7 or 8, a friend and I were playing hide and seek in her house. I hid behind the shower curtain and waited for her to come looking for me. After a few minutes someone came into the bathroom and I giggled to myself thinking it was my friend. But the person shut the door and I heard them sit down on the toilet and start to pee. Terrified, I tried to remain as quiet as possible, hoping they would finish and leave the bathroom and never know I was there. Nope. After peeing they got undressed and a few seconds later, opened the shower curtain. It was my friend's mom, getting ready to take a shower. She screamed bloody murder and I hightailed it out of there. To this day I'm not sure my friend knows that happened. I wouldn't be embarrassed about that. Kids tend to say outrageous things, and it's not to their fault. Life is so simple at that age. Understanding social norms that adults follow isn't exactly in their repertoire. When I was 6, my sister died on a family trip. We were on a houseboat. There was only a day or so left, so I asked my mom if we could just leave her on the back deck and finish the trip. Not exactly my best moment as a child. But it's hard to understand a person not being there anymore, and what it truly means. Experimenting with sex and my best friend at age 15. On my knees, face in his lap, both of us naked. Had forgotten to lock my bedroom door. Dad knocks and walks in. All embarrassed. My friend's penis wilted, as did mine. Dad was fine, just said we were too young. Still, very embarrassed.